You see that button, Shane? We're live. Yeah, Shane fixes his hair.
We're live. I just, this is the first time I might have noticed I have like this giant halo 15 feet above my head on my headphones. I'm not really sure what it's for. I'll pull my
Yeah, it look.
headphones down.
Is that like trying to connect with the other side, another dimension there?
I think it's like to stop concussions in case I run into a wall or something like that.
Makes sense. It's
Yeah,
exactly why you'd buy a headset. Make sure you
exactly.
don't get a concussion while you're podcasting.
Exactly.
So, Mannequin Chill, we're back. It's been I don't even remember how long, but we made a promise to try to do one every 2 weeks, and I think we've come close to hitting that. But Monday, 5 o'clock. Don't really have a show sheet. Don't really have any topics on our minds, but figured we'll just hit go, record, and go for about 30 to 45 minutes. So,
So here's a fun one.
all
We were
right.
kind of just talking about it, but and I already know the answer, but whatever. It's something to jabber about, right? Do you ever avoid teams, just full teams of players? Just you won't draft a player from a specific team because they're bad.
I think it
Or expect them to be bad.
depends on the positions. I will typically don't necessarily care if I'm looking for streaming tight ends or backup running backs. I mean, I'd obviously prefer to have, an efficient quarterback throwing the ball or a better offense with the backup running back that might get a spot start. But I think generally I'm less worried about offenses if it's those positions versus I don't really want threshold receivers as I always call them. I don't really want them on bad teams. Only because if you're building a team around, say, you can start 3 receivers and 3 flexes, right? You want to kind of have like 7 or 8 strong receivers that you can throw in there constantly and always have a couple of them in your flexes, right? But really what I want to chase in those spots is I want to have a bunch of wide receiver threes, a bunch of wide receiver twos, but I want to have enough of them to where I've cast a wide enough net where I hit on, 3 or 4 25-point games from those guys. I'll eat the 8-point games. But in terms of, I want to have them in my lineup when I'm going to get spike weeks. And it just feels like if you're chasing low volume / low efficiency offenses, that you're probably not going to get as many 25+ point games. You know what I mean? So I think from that regard, yeah, I would probably see. The thing is, like, you asked me, like, who are these offenses? Like Seahawks,
Right now.
Bears.
Right now.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. And so my point would be, like, I think you're in a static range of players where, pick an offense you think is going to be real bad this year that you just don't really want any part of the receivers.
Oh, man, see, that's hard because I want a piece of everyone. I'm smart enough to know that you don't do that. All right, the receivers. Someone already put it out there. How about the Patriots?
Okay. I actually think Patriots are a good example of an offense that you don't know how they're going to concentrate the targets, right? I will say Mac Jones was a pretty efficient quarterback as a rookie. So I do think he has a shot to become. I hate when people say, oh, he's going to have a Kirk Cousins type career or, even like a Derek Carr type career. Like, that's going to be hard to do. He's going to have to be like a top 12 quarterback in the league for like a decade to have that kind of career. You know what I mean? But I think he's going to be efficient in delivering the ball to his weapons. The problem is there's like 5 running backs and 2 tight ends and 5 receivers. So it's like there's no concentration for you to bank on. So I could agree with fading that offense. But what I would also say would be there is one component that I like. So it would be the efficiency. So I'm okay betting on maybe Pierre Strong and Hunter Henry and Jacoby Myers. Pick your guy. I don't know who the guys are going to be, but I'm okay having a little exposure to that offense. Like the Seahawks on the other end, the Seahawks last year ran the least amount of plays in the league. They had the least amount of time of possession in the league, and now they have Drew Lock or Geno Smith. So that's an offense where you can say, I don't care who the player is. If I can tier parallel to another player with a similar value, I'm out. So that brings you to like Noah Fant, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. I don't care about who those names are for one season. If I can pivot DK Metcalf to insert any other like low end wide receiver one, I'll just take the swap and I'll worry about getting DK shares next year. You know what I mean? So I think in that regard, yeah. But Am I going to necessarily go out of my way to avoid the offense if I have DK on a dynasty roster? No. But like, I think right now you'd trade DK for T. Higgins, wouldn't you? Straight up.
Straight up.
And is that just simply, if they switched places, you would switch them in terms of who you'd prefer, right?
And then I'd immediately make the trade for DK.
Oh, exactly. So I think that just tells you right there how fluid this is. And it's why when you're in this range of wide receivers, you almost have to play the receivers in this range like redraft. Now, the issue is, like, if I come to Shane and I have DK and he has T. Higgins and I offer you that trade straight up, you going to counter and just ask for a third? Or are you going to say, you know what, I'm going to ride out the year, especially if we're in August and we're like, what, a month before the season starts? You pretty much probably know who DK's quarterback's going to be. Is that a trade you would make right now? Like, what would it take if I was offering you Metcalf for Higgins and we're 2 weeks before the season? Like, for you to go outside of that comfort zone, what would that take for you to trade him, swap him straight up? And you're giving me Higgins, you're taking on Metcalf. Would you need at least a second?
Yeah, third's not going to do it. Only because a third is just meh. So definitely a second.
Okay. And I think a lot of people, if you put that poll up, they would say, oh, give me DK in the second, right? A lot of people would take that side. But I think that's a move where literally when the season ends and it's like, oh, the Seahawks were really, 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 really bad. They're going to get the number 1 pick next year. You may go, okay, can I make that trade back? And I get, DK in the second. And maybe I'm willing to bet on the situation getting better next year. So I think you can make those moves. But I think that's where I really prefer to have efficiency. I don't want to go into the season. If you told me I can only have receivers on like the top 15 offenses in the league, I'd be fine with it. You know what I mean? And just cross pivot with all the other players. You?
Yeah. But I'm still never going to avoid teams just because, though. Like, I don't care how bad the offense is. Now, like you said, I might avoid players. Like, I'm probably not going to be trying to get whoever the Browns quarterback is when it's not Deshaun Watson. Seattle's quarterback, obviously, I don't care if it's Drew Lock or Geno Smith or both of them, or if I can get both their scoring combined in the one game scoring. Still don't want that. Teddy Bridgewater, wherever he's a quarterback, I never want him. Places like that. Sam Darnold, I'll never want him wherever he's a quarterback. So, yeah, I'll do it. But like you said, it's more specific to the position.
Yeah, I think there's 3 components when you're looking at, especially wide receivers. You're looking at, 1, the overall volume of the offense. And I think that's actually the most overblown part of it. You have a lot of receivers that produce year in, year out with 125, 130 targets. Now, are they going to be the wide receiver 1 overall with that volume? No. But with the right quarterback and the right situation, they can be a wide receiver 1 on 130 targets. Easy. Many have done it. If you get 140 and you're on an efficient offense, you're a really, really good shot of being a wide receiver 1. I think the other thing is the concentration. So I think that's the beauty of some of these other offenses is it's not only moderate to high volume, but it's also concentrated. They're not using 10 different players. And then when you find an offense where it's like, okay, I think that's why everyone chases the Bengals or the Chargers, because it's like, dude, they could have high volume, they have a good efficiency, and they only throw it to like 4 or 5 players.
Yeah, as opposed to the Chiefs who throw it to literally anyone that's on the field. They have no problem with tossing it to anyone on the field.
Well, the Chiefs may be one of those teams this year that maybe expands how many options they use. They may use a couple running backs. They may use 4 receivers. They may use a tight end. So maybe their efficiency goes higher because there's more weapons, but the concentration expands. So it's going to be a little frustrating maybe to figure out which of those receivers you prefer. So I think that's like kind of the magic trio I would look for. But I think there's some merit to trying to stack that too, where it's like, go and look for these trades where can I trade? And people will look at me like, oh, that's a blasphemy trade. Why would you ever make that? Like, could you trade DK Metcalf and a second and get Mike Williams in a first on a team where you have Justin Herbert?
Probably. I'm thinking you can. Even if the market's down on DK right now, I'm thinking you could pull that off. Although I don't know. The market's pretty smart. Although, again, this is looking at the leagues, like specific leagues. Like I was trying Jalen Waddle pivot downs today, and didn't work out for me very well in one of our leagues. You didn't get an offer because, well, it wasn't worth it. But, like, I sent it out, and I kind of knew as I'm sending them out, like, no one's going to accept any of these. But let's just see. Like Jalen Waddle for A.J. Brown and like a third. and I got turned down. But like just a bunch of trades like that.
I mean, I think those kind of trades are almost like, and again, we're not talking about, and this is the interesting thing about the wide receiver landscape right now, is that at the top, there's essentially, here's what I would think. There's Chase and there's Jefferson. And then I think wide receiver 3, and this is crazy because we've been critics, I think wide receiver 3 right now has to be CeeDee Lamb, because he's one good season from being right up with those other guys, whether he's been good in his first 2 years or not. I think you would agree if he goes out and has 170 targets this year and 1,400 yards, he's going to be up in the mold with those other guys, right? You would agree?
Yeah, I definitely, and CeeDee Lamb's one of those guys I've definitely been trying to get to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, everything fell his way, so no one's trying to trade him right now.
Exactly.
As they shouldn't be, unless they're getting absolutely smash offers. But if I'm offering you Jalen Waddle in a third, you should just hold on to CeeDee Lamb.
Okay, well, you mentioned Waddle, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf. I prefer probably Waddle and then Brown and then Metcalf in that order, but I think you could all argue that their situations got neutral or worse this offseason. So if you have Justin Herbert on a team and you have one of those 3 receivers, I'm going to go back to this trade. You have Waddle. You have a 23 second. You can get Mike Williams in a 23 first. And you have Herbert. Would you offer that trade?
Yeah, I'll take it. Sold.
Okay, 24 first.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is what I just want to test.
It's got to be the 23 first, because then I can talk myself into the decrease I'm going to expect in production. Like I expect a decrease in production from Waddle to Williams. Now, how much can I stomach that decrease in production? Well, that's a 23 first. We get into 2024, and then it's like, no, now you're going to need to give me more.
Okay, so how arrogant do you have to be to say that's not a good process deal if you are the Justin Herbert manager? Because I honestly think if you put polls up on Twitter and you said, and I'm not saying Twitter is like the perfect sample size of what dynasty values should be, but I guarantee, and I may do this just for fun, run some A.J. Brown in a 23 second for Mike Williams in a 23 first and see what side people vote for. I still think a lot of people will look at those Waddle, Brown, and Metcalf and go, man, I can get one of those guys and I get back a second too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I also think if I send a bunch of those trades out, you know how many rejections I'm going to get? I bet it's more rejections than accepts. Probably 75% people reject that. So really, what is A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf actually worth? If you can barely even trade a random first to get them, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean we've talked about it too before. Maybe not on this show. Maybe on this show. I don't know. Like, which one of those guys are you holding on to for if someone offers you a 2023 first? You're gonna say, let's just call it mid. You know what I mean? We're just gonna assume it's 105, 106, 107, 107 in that range. Which of those wide receivers would you be willing to give up for a singular 2023 first?
Honestly, probably Metcalf for sure, but you could probably argue it was all 3. And I think the justification would be the only way you lose that deal is if one of those guys changes situations again, which we know that's not going to happen with Waddle or A.J. Brown.
Maybe.
So it would have to be their offense or their quarterback changes. It's not going to be their changing teams, at least for a couple years for sure. But the only way you lose that trade is basically if their situation flips and all of a sudden they're one of the efficient, concentrated offense that you want a part of. Because I do think you could turn around. The one crazy thing is I don't know if the market values the 23 firsts in terms of being able to sell them like we do. Meaning, like, my idea is, okay, I can trade DK for a 23 first, but I should go buy T. Higgins for that 23 first. And it's basically like doing the same trade we talked about earlier. Like, I'm almost pretty much certain I can get a lot of players with a 23 first until you get into your league and you go, hey, I have a 23 first to trade. And then you start saying, who's the best asset I can get? And then nobody will make a trade. You know what I mean? But yet the people that won't trade you those players also won't trade their 23 first. So you're basically just stuck with the pick. So the banking on the pick is that you're just going to be able to buy more with it a little bit later. So we'll see. Want to get some questions? We got a couple.
Yeah, I like questions. That's why we do these live streams, so we can get questions from the people.
All right. Well, we had a couple shout outs. Shane Hallam tuning in.
Hey,
Thank you,
Shane.
Shane. What's up, man? Let's see. Okay, here's one. See if we can wrap your head around this one. Just first name, no real name, but he has 12-team Superflex start 9. He moves DJ Moore for Drake London straight up. I know what you're going to say, but go ahead and say it.
I mean, I'm fine with it, but I want something on the other side. Like, what's my impetus to move? Like, there's not the value difference is just, it's not too far. Although London,
here we go. Here comes the although.
The London does have a better chance to see his value just spike after this year. If he goes out there and gets 120 targets with Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder under center, and then gets Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or Tyler Van Dyke or someone, Spencer Rattler next year, all of a sudden the talk about him being a top 5 wide receiver is going to be deafening. And DJ Moore, like, unless he's a top 5 wide receiver this year, that ship has sailed on his value. So yeah, the more I talk this through, it's London, and it's not actually even that close.
So we went from about 45 seconds ago, this was there's no incentive, to now it's not that close. Because I've heard you say before, like, you kind of have like DJ Moore fatigue, where you're just sick of waiting, So if you can re-roll him for a wide receiver 1 in a class, you'll just kind of take your chances. Like, as long as Drake London doesn't completely suck, there's probably a good chance he's just as valuable next year, where you may be able to get like a late 23 first for him or something like that next year. Whereas I'm not necessarily sure. DJ Moore could go out and have 100 catches and 1,200 yards, and people are going to go, "Oh, he's wide receiver 15." You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's going to be really hard for him to improve on where he is. You just have to kind of, pray that he gets a better quarterback in the next year and he doesn't have to wait 2 more years. Here's our buddy Ridley Truther, recovering. Did 3 DK trades in the past 2 weeks. He traded away DK and a 23 second for Hollywood and a 24 first. That's kind of what we were talking about, wasn't it? And you said you wanted the 23 first, but you like that?
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I forget who we were talking about because it was like 10 minutes ago. But I like this wide receiver much better.
So you like Hollywood a lot more than Mike Williams?
Yeah. And just considering 2022 production, that's what year we're in, right? I could definitely see Marquise smashing this year and his value increasing on the open market. And then me trading him again because I still don't think he's elite. But no, I like that deal. Just straight up, I could see him having a better season than DK. He's definitely got the better quarterback, and he's going to be in a more high-volume offense.
Yeah, I went through over the last couple of days and was playing with some of the efficiency, I guess you would say, scores or grades that I came up with. And Kyler Murray's actually really good. I mean, he actually, if you took away his rushing and you just looked at his passing efficiency, so if you removed everything that he does in fantasy, rushing, and you just put his passing efficiency, I mean, he's up there with, he's not quite like Rodgers or like Burrow level, but he's up there with like Prescott and Matt Stafford. Like, you're kind of like, this guy's a pretty good passer. At least in 2021 he was. Now, there's a little context in there in terms of like, what's his YPA, what's his throw A dot, but it's not horrible. It's not like he did what he did from an efficiency perspective at 6.6 yards per target. You know what I mean? So like, he's actually pretty good for his weapons. So this is a move. If I have Kyler and I have any of these receivers that I go, man, I think this guy's overvalued by the market, and you can go get Hollywood Brown and pair him with Kyler and pick up the 24 first, even if it's given up a 23 second. I like that. You're kind of going all in on the Kyler Hollywood stack, and you kind of hope that, that gives you a couple more years. Otherwise, you may be fishing the market again next year for a different receiver. Paul Davenport, 12-team, super flex, full PPR, start 10, so pretty stock. Oh, that's an easy one for me. Deontay or Jacoby Myers, Gronk, and the 23 first.
Yeah, and we've had some conversations around DJ. He's not a guy that I'm holding on to over a 2023 first. And then I get the added benefit of telling myself that it's a start 10, and I'm probably going to start Gronk at tight end, and in a pinch and bye weeks and stream weeks, I could start Jacoby, and then I also get a 23 first, which is going to be, I don't know, even just looking at age, he's probably going to be 4 years younger than Deontay next year, whoever I'm drafting.
Well, and I think if you, let's say you were let's say you feel similar to Deontay Johnson like you do with DJ Moore, right? And maybe for a little bit of a different reason, but you're kind of like you're either Deontay either stays with Pittsburgh and he has Kenny Pickett, so that's an unknown. But I bet you could probably take another piece and add to that 23 first, and you might be able to go up a tier at receiver. So it's almost the same thing as doing what we were talking about earlier, where it's like, okay, yeah, maybe Deontay, and I think we both agree Deontay's still going to be able to garner pretty decent market share, right? Like we both agree with that.
He's a guy definitely in season. I can see someone trading a 2023 first for.
Now, but do you think the market share, let's say his market share goes down just a little bit and he's like at 22, 23%. I don't think that's going to be 23% of 615 attempts like Roethlisberger. I don't see them passing as much next year with Trubisky and Pickett. It's probably going to go more down to league average, maybe like 550, 540. So I just think his volume is going to go down, even if the efficiency kind of remains the same and maybe goes up a little bit just because Roethlisberger was really bad. I think Deontay is a guy I'd trade for the 23 first. So the other two pieces are just basically additional pieces.
Yep.
All right. Julian says CeeDee Lamb and Travis Etienne or Michael Pittman, J.K. Dobbins, Brian Robinson, and a 23 first. This is a good one. You know what side I'm going to be on, but is this enough for you to take the process package, Shane?
I don't know because I don't know how I really feel about Pittman. Is he more than a wide receiver too? It was last year his ceiling and last year's CD's floor. The first.
Okay, what's the gap between Dobbins and Etienne for you?
Straight up Dobbins. B-Rob probably makes that up if it's a start enough.
I mean, B-Rob's just a free, next man up throw in. So he has a little value with the right construction. But let's remove Dobbins and Robinson for Etienne. Someone offers you Pittman in a 23 first for Lamb. Are you accepting that or?
I should. I don't know that I'm going to. I don't know that I could pull the trigger. I don't know that I could pull the trigger.
Dude, 2 months ago, we were pooping all over CeeDee Lamb.
Well, we were pooping over CeeDee Lamb when it was, can I get T. Higgins in a first for CeeDee Lamb? I don't know that T. Higgins is Pittman. I think T. Higgins is a tier above Pittman. Although that's the thing. That's where I struggle with Pittman, right? Was last year his ceiling or is there more there? Carson Wentz hyper-targeted him, but then he wasn't actually good.
Okay, let's say Michael Pittman is Mike Williams, where he may give you a couple wide receiver 2 seasons. And he's still got 2 more years until his rookie contract's up. And then maybe 4 more years in his prime.
I'm probably hitting accept. I'm probably getting that first in that Pittman, and I'll tell myself how Pittman's going to be close enough to CD where this doesn't, that CD's overrated in the community. Yeah, I'm going to. Is that one
you snap accept, or you sit there and stew for a couple hours about whether you take it?
I definitely sit on this one a little bit, and then whichever way I come out, I go ask one of our Patreon chats, and I frame it in a way that I get them to answer what I want them to answer, so I can just find someone that agrees with me.
Now, what if you have Dak? Is this even harder to accept?
Yeah, I'm sticking with the CD side with Dak most likely.
All right. Yep. All right. Yeah, I think this is a classic. It sucks because it's CD because he's the one where if he goes out and smashes, I'm not even debating whether he's good or not. But I think we both acknowledge if he goes out and has a big year, this dynasty community will go insane over him. He'll be a first-round startup pick.
Yeah.
So for one reason only, he is the one receiver besides Chase and Jefferson where I'm like, I almost have to value him at that point because I already know if he goes out and just crushes for the first month, people are going to be sending 2+ firsts to get him. So, yeah. I mean, you almost just want to have a couple shares in your back pocket just in case that happens. I think I know the answer to this one. Ramsey. I know you weren't a big Sutton fan, but this is a smash accept. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah, look, I asked Twitter last week why they were in on Sutton, partly because I like to needle people. And 2, I just want to see how many people were in on Sutton. It's a lot of people. So even if I'm not, I'm going to take the first in Sutton. And even if it's just to move Sutton with another piece and get back a Metcalf-like receiver, cool.
Yeah, I think it's funny how the narrative switched from like Judy to Sutton slowly in a span of like 8 weeks. And I actually think you could probably go get like Judy in a second for Sutton now. Whereas like when Russ first got traded there, it was the opposite. You know, and it's just funny how narrative season, nothing has changed since they got Russ. You know what I mean? The only thing that's maybe changed is like they drafted Dulcich and KJ Hamler, like his knee isn't still shredded. Maybe he's going to come back, but that's it. But there's just been this narrative that, I mean, I've heard people saying Hamler is going to beat out Judy for the slot. And I'm just like, hey, you know, it's one of those where as soon as the narrative goes one way, go the other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm actually, I'm trying. I'm all over Judy right now, but I like that trade.
So say this is a start 11. You doing this deal?
Yes.
Is there a number of starters or format would make you say no?
No, it's 23 seconds. Look, I love the 23 class. We've talked about this before. Second round draft picks, it doesn't matter how good the class is. They got a hit rate of about 33%. And that depends on what you consider a hit, right? Marquise Brown is guaranteed to be, at worst, a wide receiver 2. That's what I hope that one of these second rounders, if you hit on all 3 of them, you look like a genius and you're very good at drafting, and you should probably become a general manager for an NFL team.
One more from Ridley Truther. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, he's one of those guys that has a contingent in the community, right? Like we already mentioned CD. It's AJ Brown. It's DK Metcalf. It's these just human monsters like that we just want to do well. And if they do well, we're going to increase how well they did. If DK has the same exact season as Jamar Chase next year, DK probably leaps him in dynasty value because, you know, he's just a guy that we like. He's fun to watch. He's big, you know, he's fast. He's like a superhuman. We want our dynasty football, fantasy football stars to be superheroes, and DK fits that mold. So yeah, I could definitely see him jumping up.
I think the problem is if I gave you Vegas odds that DK is going to have 15 touchdowns and 1,500 yards with Drew Lock, then
yeah,
you'd probably just bet the other side and bet the $100 and you'd bet the $100 to win $1 that's not going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the problem. Is how likely is it based on reality, considering that his quarterback play is going to be way below replacement level.
So this offseason, I was touting DJ Moore a lot, and part of that was only maybe 10, 20%, but part of that was if they got Deshaun Watson, he immediately rises to a level where he's a top 5 receiver. Because we already know he's really good. He's just missing the efficiency component that you need to elevate into being like an elite receiver.
Right.
I think DK is the next one in that range. Like if DK, I know it's way out there, but if he were to get traded either now or before the season or in the off season to the Packers or something like that. Like, do you still want to have 1 or 2 teams with DK for that reason? Like, there has to be a little of his value that is milked into he's in the worst possible situation right now. But one move could literally flip him into a top 10 situation. And now you're like, damn, he's the wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 3 in Dynasty.
And that's why I like recovering Ridley Truther's comment here, definitely, because he's a guy and his situation's going to improve, right? It can't get worse. It literally cannot get worse from Drew Lock and Geno Smith. Either he gets traded or they are terrible next year and they draft a highly functioning, highly sought quarterback.
Okay, so say you have DK and you can trade DK and a second and get T. Higgins. And then at the end of the year, after Higgins finishes, I don't know, wide receiver 11 and DK is wide receiver 28, would you go buy DK back? You've basically rented a good year of T. Higgins. You go back and you say, hey, I'll trade you Higgins for DK and maybe you give me a third. And you're just gambling that, you know what, the situation's going to break right for DK because whether he's hitting free agency or Seattle's getting a better quarterback. Like, I think that's the part of the reason of you make this trade. You know how dynasty managers are with guys that are in the same tier. You'll be able to get some DK shares back at a little bit of a lesser price once January hits. The problem is you may not want to pay that price right then, but you could get him back probably with not that much more difficulty than it would take to get him right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. We had another one. All right. Here's a quick one. Love the first name here, Connor. Great spelling as well with an OR, not an ER. values on Tom Brady and Matt Ryan? How do you approach these guys?
14-team startup. I assume he's talking about getting rid of them. If I'm getting rid of Brady, it's a 14-team super flex. I still want a first for Brady. I don't care. Because if you're trying to get him off of me, your pick's going to be pretty good. Matthew, I think, is less good at football, has always been less good at football, and is aging less gracefully. Give me a couple seconds and you can have them. And I'm assuming this is off a roster where I don't need these guys, or I'm not competing, or I'm rebuilding, etc. But it's the same if I'm trying to acquire either of them. If I'm going to try to get Brady, I'll give up a first for him because I clearly think my team's good enough to compete. And Ryan, I'll always give up a couple seconds. That's fine for a functional quarterback.
So he says, I mean, obviously there's difference between I have Matt Ryan on my roster already versus I'm in a startup draft and I'm actually targeting him. I think you and I would probably never be the team that is taking Matt Ryan in a startup because, you know,
no. I will.
You will?
I will in round 14 if Matt Ryan's still sitting out there. I'm just telling you where I'll take him.
Okay, sure. But my point is, if he was then your fourth quarterback, you're trying to trade him then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So assume you're just not eyeing it. See, here's the issue. In a 14-team superflex, most likely you're going to see these guys go quicker than you probably would want to take them.
14
and
teams, yes.
You and I have probably tried to color up our picks and get 2 elite quarterbacks already.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say it's a blind spot, but I definitely think the startup is different than the trade value with these types of players. Because I have some leagues where I have Brady and he's my third or fourth quarterback. And every day I'm posting in the chat, hey, Brady's available. And I know there's 3 or 4 teams that I know in the league need a quarterback and they're not completely drawing dead for 22. So they're trying to win. But at the same time, I really haven't gotten a good offer to where like I'm incentivized to move off those guys as my insurance policy. You know what I mean? So I don't see the same steam in a trade league where you have to actually get an offer.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and the problem in a startup, I'm never going to be comfortable drafting those guys where other people are going to draft them. So you're right. But Brady, if push came to shove, I'll go as high as 6th round, and he'll already be gone. So I'll never get him.
Ooh. Yeah, Connor, good advice. I think that for me, I'm always looking to trade 2 QB2s regardless of the situation because I probably, if they're my QB3 on my roster, I don't care about the insurance. I'm willing to kind of gamble that there's going to be insurance policies that I can buy cheaper throughout the year. But you want to sell the QB2s that people actually want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you have like Tua as your QB3 or Derek Carr, like someone wants those guys. Now, it may not be the exact price that you want, but I bet you if you put them on the trade block, you would get some offers. The problem is you put like Matt Ryan on your trade block or Carson Wentz or Ryan Tannehill, and it's like, I'll give you a third. I'll give you a 25 second. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I'd rather have the insurance policy because worst case scenario, that's still worth more to me than what you're offering. So I think it really depends. But if you find a QB2 that the market likes, because like this week we're seeing a bunch of Kirk Cousins puff pieces for some reason, then okay, that's when you shop them. You literally don't really look at the name. You just look at what the market says about these guys. All right. We had to do it. Paul Davenport, he asked a Watson question. Watson, a 23 first and a 25 first and 2/3 for Josh Allen. I love Watson, but this is a absolute accept to bail yourself out of the, you know, I don't even want to say it's like you're just bailing yourself out of some risk that you're holding. And the risk could be like you don't get anything from Watson for a year. I think the lost cause with Watson is you're also going to have to hold a depressed asset that half the community hates for a year. So he's really just a dead spot on your team. You're not going to be able to be like, oh, let me trade him away for points during the midseason, Shane. You want to buy Watson? Sure, I'll give you a second. You know what I mean? Like the market's just not going to be there until he's in the clear again. So I think I would. This is a dream trade, isn't it? If you have Watson.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you're doing the NBA rules too, where you're not trading 2 consecutive first round draft picks from the same year, or excuse me, from the same team. So you're not giving your 23 first and your 24 at 25. I love first, but whatever. Yeah, this is perfect. Like, this is, if I could make this trade in all the leagues that I own Deshaun Watson in, I would do it immediately because, like you said, there is no risk with Josh Allen. The risk is injury, which is fine. That's the same injury risk everyone has, but he has less risk of being, suspended for the 2022 season. And then also nobody wanting him, half your league mates not wanting him on their roster for moral opposition reasons.
Yeah, and I don't think you get this trade. You can take Watson and a 23 first and add him for any of the top like 5 or 6 quarterbacks. Most likely you're going to get declined on all of them right now. But on the other hand, what would it take if you have Josh Allen to pivot to Watson, Shane?
223 first.
I was just going to say, if you are looking at, I have 4 quarterback rooms where I have 3 of the top 7 quarterbacks. So I have Burrow, Lamar, Kyler. Like I'd be fine going to the Watson manager and saying, hey, like if you have 23 first or maybe a 23 first and a top, 8 running back or a top 12 receiver, like I'll take on the Watson risk for like basically 2 firsts on top value. And I've sent a couple of those trades and it's just smash declines. It's just like I'd rather eat Watson for a year than basically give away so much leverage back. So I think that's the sell price. It's got to be at least 223 first or equivalent value on top of Watson to trade away one of those other elite quarterbacks. Thoughts on this one? Ridley Truther again, 12-team Superflex, got rid of Brady for a 24 first. Shane, I talked about this with Sean Siegel on Dynasty and Chill, that Brady for the 24 first is super sneaky because there's a decent chance he's gone by then. So it actually kind of correlates with the value of the 24 first. If he doesn't play in 2023, that could be a major bump up with the value of that 24 first. If that makes sense. I mean, is that would you auto sell or no?
I know what you're saying there. Yeah, but this is one of those I'd be fine either side of this, to be quite honest with you. Even though it's 12 teams, so it's not, obviously 14 teams, it's not as scarce. I'm fine with either side of this because the 2024 first is not the 2023 class. I can get that back if I truly, truly want it. I'll get somebody's 2024 first. You can guarantee that. And if I think my team is good enough, understanding that obviously when Brady retires after this season, then I'll have to replace him again. I get that. I'll sell him now. Now I'm talking it through. I'm a little less keen on buying him for this, but I think I would. But honestly, I'd probably wait till in season to make this move, to be honest with you, if I'm trading for him.
Yeah, I think it's a fair price to buy. But I also think if you're sitting there with Brady, like I was talking about earlier, as your QB3, if you can find a team that is just desperate enough to sell or buy right now, it really does correlate nicely with that 24 first. If he retires and this team is already chasing to buy a guy like Brady, they're probably hurting a little bit at quarterback.
Yeah.
And you just secured their 24 first where he could retire on their roster before 2023. Like that correlation is great. You may end up with a top 4 or 5 pick just simply in that deal. So in that case, when you frame it that way, it's a good correlation bet. Elijah Moore plus what gets the 102?
Probably more than you want to pay.
Second?
Nah, wouldn't be enough for me if I'm.
Do you think it'll cost more?
It would if I'm the guy at 102.
Interesting.
You're going to pay a premium for the wide receiver one out of this class. And what I'm going to tell you is, well, look, Elijah Moore just got Garrett Wilson there. He's not even the wide receiver one on his own team. So if you want to come up and get the wide receiver one of this class, you're going to have to give me a little bit more than that.
Okay, so I give you Drake London and a 23 second. You give me Elijah Moore and a 24 first. Are you taking that?
I'm giving up a first now?
You're giving up a 24 first and Elijah Moore, and you're getting Drake London and a 23 second. Is that enough? The first second swap, and it's 23 and 24?
No, I won't know. I'm not giving up any firsts. Not doing it. Not here.
Okay.
Nope.
Dillon or Dobbins, half PPR?
Oh, half PPR, where neither of these guys are receiving backs anyway, though A.J. Dillon actually looks like a smooth receiver when they let him. Is it blasphemous to say I think I like A.J. Dillon more than J.K. Dobbins now? Does
the market, though?
I don't know. The market loves A.J. Dillon's thighs and his quads. I know that because every time he tweets out any workout video, it's all flutter. J.K. Dobbins could spike, though. I'm probably going to lean Dobbins.
I agree. I think the market on Dobbins is probably better, which is you're not getting any leverage on either side here. You know what I mean? It's kind of like if I have an asset that's worth 80 cents, I just traded one that's worth 90 cents.
Yep.
Even if I don't really think the range of outcomes is that different for the two guys.
Yep.
Caleb, 10-team, 1 QB. So, I mean, obviously 10-team, 1 QB, but he got rid of Antonio Gibson in the 201 for ETN and Mike Williams. I'd say he smashed that trade.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I don't know if we haven't talked about it on this show, but definitely not feeling Gibson since they did everything they could to kidnap J.D. McKissick to make sure he came back and then drafted Brian Robinson so they could specifically put Gibson in a committee. And you brought this up before and someone else tweeted it. Gibson had a ton of work last year.
300 touches, yeah.
Yeah, and really wasn't that great with them. Now, part of that might have been that his shin was on fire for most of the year, but maybe he just can't carry a load. I love ETN, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I'll take ETN and Mike Williams all day.
I do think Gibson is a decent pivot off of option if you're pivoting down from another running back that doesn't have like a top 10 ceiling. So I do think actually you could go from like Dobbins to Gibson and get a plus and probably not end up any worse for the wear if the plus was worth. Like if I have Dobbins and I can get Gibson in a 24 first and I give Dobbins in a 23 second, I'll bank the first. Yeah. And I'll just kind of take advantage of the person that thinks, okay, I'm definitely better at picking running backs than Scott. You know what I mean? Because I think they're both RB2s probably. So I don't really see the difference in them. I know the market would prefer Dobbins by a lot, though. Here you go. Would you give up Zach Wilson for Watson?
That's pretty cheap acquisition cost.
I think there's people that would go both ways. You got some Watson panickers that if they can get.
Definitely.
Now, I don't know if they do it right now, but my prediction is if they levy a 1-year suspension on Watson, you're going to see him going to panicked people. They'll trade him for Cousins, Carr, Zach Wilson, you know what I mean? To basically any guy that can give him like a top 18 or better season, or they think they can, people will trade Watson for that. And that's what I'd rather buy. That's why I'm kind of out on buying Watson right now, because the person that has him seems like is either the person that just traded for him and is already dug in on keeping him, or it's like they still kind of want prices from 2 months ago. And I'm pretty confident that even if he only gets 12 games, we're just going to react to negative news, and it's 100% that there's going to be negative news coming. So just wait for that day, because you're not going to get any worse price today.
Literally not going to be. There's 0% chance that anything good's going to come out of in the next couple of weeks on Deshaun Watson.
Good is going to be okay. He's only going to miss 2/3 of the season.
Yeah,
exactly.
Half a season. You'd be like, oh my god, that's great. I'd give up Zach Wilson for Deshaun Watson if I'm forced to make a decision right now. Yes. I can afford, and the way I look at it is I can afford missing on this if Zach Wilson was, I'm assuming, my QB3. I can't imagine he's your QB2, or even if he was my QB2, my situation doesn't look that great anyway. So I'll shoot for the upside with Watson.
Here's a good one. We talk about this on Dynasty Trades in 5 sometimes. We talked about this on the live stream the other night, the difference between a 10-team and a 12-team, how it maybe devalues the picks just a little bit. Because if there's 5 first-round quarterbacks, it's not necessarily going to be like, I have to get those guys. So would you move a mid-23 for Chubb in a 10-teamer?
Yeah,
PPR?
Even in a 10-team, he's gone. And I get what you're saying with the 10-team, the quarterbacks aren't going to be as valued as much. I just know us as a species, when they're super flex in our league, we're just going to hammer.
Well, he's moving the pick for Chubb right now. He's giving away the first.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
All right. Let's see another one. Interesting name there. Bobby Hebert.
Hey, Bobby Hebert.
All right. 12-team, 1 QB, half PPR. So I'm assuming this is all 3: Mooney, Pickens, and Njoku for McLaurin, Algier in the 24 second. Can you digest all that quickly, Shane?
Yeah, I'll go with Mooney and Pickens side and Njoku.
Just take the 2 receivers?
Yep.
I kind of agree with that. That's I can see the appeal if you think Algier's any good in a half PPR because he's a running back, but I think I'd still probably go with Pickens and Mooney. And I think you're going to see like Pickens, if he does anything early on, his value will rise up to like McLaurin level or higher right away anyway. So I'm okay with getting some more shares of him. Here we go. Fan Football 2023, 12-team Superflex Start 10 PPR. Kenny Pickett in a mid 23 second or a late 23 first.
Look, I hate Kenny Pickett, and I've hated everywhere I've had to draft him in leagues, and I'm ashamed of myself. So this would be the 2023 first, without a doubt.
Okay. I actually think it's a savvy trade because you can see somebody maybe, especially if that mid-second is of a team where maybe the rest of the league doesn't really think highly of that manager, you know what I mean? And they're thinking, wow, I'm getting Pickett and the 204, and I'm giving away my 111 or 112, you know? Like, I can see where someone would do that trade, but I think that's one that if it's just a random 23 first and it's not projected late and that person knows it's a chance to be high, I don't think you get that trade done. But I like the idea. I think that's what you got to do to get 23 first. If you really want them, you got to hide them in deals like this. You can't get them straight up for players anymore. Oh, let's see. We'll go for another 15 minutes if you're good, Shane.
Well, I mean, you put me on the spot, so I can't say no now.
Well, if you say no, you're just going to disappoint everybody.
Yeah, and then I just look like a terrible person.
All right, 12 teams, Superflex start 9. QB3 is Tannehill. Top 2 running backs are Barkley and Pollard. Running back room needs work.
Fine with me.
Send Elijah Moore, Brandon Cooks, and Ryan Tannehill, and you get Michael Pittman, Antonio Gibson, and Baker. Would you say Elijah and Pittman are? I think the market would say Pittman slightly, but I don't think it's crazy to kind of just wash them out.
Yeah, and I probably want Cooks over Gibson, to be quite honest with you. I know he's not happy with his running back room, but I'm pretty much ecstatic with Pollard and Barkley. And Baker, I know you're higher on Baker than I am, and I probably maybe throwing some dirt on his grave a little soon.
I'm not higher on Baker, but I like the idea of going from these nondescript QB2s like Wentz and Tannehill or Ryan and getting Mayfield thrown in with a plus. Because literally all it takes is an opportunity to come his way, and he's right in that tier with those players.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, obviously if this is a week before the season and Baker's still on the Browns and he hasn't shown up to training camp or the preseason and they're just going to bury him, then okay, yeah, he's probably going to be devalued in the trade. But well, I mean, what side would you take? Would you still take the Elijah Cooks Tannehill?
Yeah, I'm taking the Moore Cooks side, and I'm probably trying to go about this a different way if I'm trying to attack running back. It seems like he's just trying to slip Gibson in there.
So you add a 24 first, 23 second swap in this deal too, where the Baker side now gets a 24 first and the other side gives up a 23 second. Do you take it?
Well, yeah, then obviously, yeah.
Okay.
It's close enough that a value pick like that added is going to swing it very, very much.
Reply to one of the trades. Derek Carr and Jelani Woods for Zach Wilson and Damien Harris. What side?
Sure. I'll take the Zach Williams and Damien Harris side. I'm higher on Damien Harris than I should be, though, probably.
Yep. Buck. Nice logo. Like the name. So he traded a 23 first and these damn 25 first. This must be a sleeper league where like there's.
Yeah, you can't do this anywhere else. And that's fine with me. It's just, I hope these people have paid for their 2025 season.
Yeah, we're can in MFL, but it has to be like you have to go and turn on the setting to allow picks traded 3 years and out. So it doesn't, you have to select it first.
Okay.
But he gave up a 23 first and a 25 first and Jamison Williams for Javonte. And I don't want to say a bunch of roster cloggers, but unless this is like a start 11 or start 12, I'm not super excited about MVS or Rondale Moore. What do you think? Is that an over? Would you take that if you're selling Javonte? Would you take that 23 first and Jamison Williams basically, and you throw in a bunch of spare parts?
Yeah, I take that as the Javonte guy, trading him away. And if I'm making the move again, that 25 first to me is just it's not even real. Like it's just vaporware. So that's fine. I'm fine including that in every trade I ever do from here until 2020, the end of 2023.
See, and this is what will happen. Shane will forget he traded it. And if somehow Dynasty still exists in 2024, he'll go and look at his team and go, damn, where'd that 25 pick
go? How do I not have a 25 pick?
And you look back and you go, what did you trade it for, Shane? And you're like, oh, I traded it away for like Chris Carson or something like that.
I traded it for a running back. I don't know what I was doing. The running back's already retired at this point.
I traded it for Khalil Herbert. Oh, okay. Let's see. Tanner Morris. Oh, startup trade. He traded away the right to draft Mahomes. Okay, now that we have to dissect this one because I'm all about, and I know you are too, about trading up to get the extra elite quarterback, right?
Yeah,
but this dude got 4 picks for 1. I think I would even take that.
That's unless I'm reading it wrong. It definitely looks like he got 4 startup picks.
Yeah, he got 4. It was a 4 for 1. He didn't even have to give back any other picks. It doesn't look like.
Yeah, at that point, I'd have to be like, all right, well, I'm kind of forced to do it at this point. Like, I don't have a choice. I have to accept this. Watson, Waddle, Godwin, and Ertz.
So here's the thing. Would you give that up for Mahomes in a league right now?
Ertz doesn't hurt me. Watson, Waddle, Godwin. Man, look, I overpay for quarterbacks, so
I'll give you 2/3 back as well. Would you do it?
I could talk myself into paying just about anything for a quarterback. Nah, you know what? I already know what I would do. I'd go right to the chat and be like, guys, I can't do this, can I? And let them tell me no.
Yeah, it's interesting on the face value. If you just look at a 4 for 1 trade, it's enticing to do. But then you put the players in there, and in the context of if you already had a good team and maybe you had, a QB2 that was weak and you have Watson, and it's like this is on the table. I was actually talking to one of our patrons last night, and they asked me about a trade like this where they're clearly overpaying massively, and it was for Kyle Pitts. And I'm just like, dude, you have one of these trades a year where you can just go like balls out and just get the guy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But like, you better be sure about it because if it backfires, then you're in trouble.
If it doesn't hit, one of your wide receivers goes down, all of a sudden you went from like this monster team that was, putting the final nail in the coffin on everyone to just being a trash team with one asset.
Yep.
And I definitely like to trade better before I read the players attached to it. And that's not a knock on the drafting, but that's always going to be the case because the picks could be anyone until they are someone.
Yeah, I think in this deal, what I would like to do is if I was able to swing that type of trade, I would then almost be going into, and I like, if you're committed to doing this in a league, I like taking Watson at the 201. What do you got to lose? You're basically just forcing yourself into like a punt for next year probably. But then I'd probably be sitting there and like, do I really want to take Chris Godwin or do I want to try to trade back and get 2 other receivers and also pick up like a 23 first on top? You know what I mean? Like that's how I'd want to build it. I wouldn't want to just draft 4 players. I'd want to keep trying to move down and accumulate more future picks.
Yep.
So Rob, 10-team Superflex, half PPR. He gave up his 23 first, another 10-teamer. But he got James Conner, David Bell, and Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, do those guys really matter in a 10-team half PPR?
No.
Unless it's like 15 starters or something like that.
Yeah, look, I like David Bell. Well, no, I don't. Who am I kidding? I like Wan'Dale Robinson. No, I like Wan'Dale Robinson's draft capital. I can't do it. That's too many like nickels for my dollar I just gave up. And that's like a gold dollar, like one of those limited edition, like Susan B. Anthony ones they did at the 200 Centennial. Yeah, no, I'm not giving that up.
Yeah, and the only thing I don't like here, and this isn't any shade on Rob, I think it's I just did a patron pod the other day talking about, okay, now I've accumulated a lot of 23 firsts. I do want to trade some away. I'll probably trade some away before the season starts, but I want to be selective in where I'm doing that, right? I don't just want to say, oh, every single league, well, clearly I can get better, so let me trade my picks away. I don't want to, if I'm trading for a running back right now, it needs to be like Barkley or McCaffrey, or I don't want it to be James Conner. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like this kind of feels like you traded away $1 for a 50-cent piece and a couple dimes. You know what I mean? Like cumulatively, they all could be decent, but I think you barely maybe got your change back in terms of what you gave away. So Don't love it. Julian again, Zach Wilson. Ooh, big boy trade here. Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore, and a 23 first, and Tyrion Davis Price for Kyler Murray. So another one of those start 11, but he paid probably close to like three first value for Kyler. I think I'd probably pay this for Kyler, wouldn't you?
For Kyler, yeah, he's one of my top 5, top 6 quarterbacks. He's definitely in that elite tier that if I'm going to overpay for a player, and it's only going to be quarterbacks generally, he's one of the ones I would do it. Start 11's a little concerning. You know what I mean?
I think you got a chance to get an elite quarterback for this type of package in a start 11. Start 9, probably not, but I think start 11, you start to get to where people really value getting those three pieces,
They're looking at like, oh, I can fill my roster if Zach Wilson hits, then I've got Elijah Moore and a 2023 first. So that's about the price you're going to have to pay, but I'm fine with it. I like it. You get Kyler Murray and you crushed them.
All right, Ja Webb had a couple deals here. He gave away Gibson for a 23 first and second. That's a smash.
Yes.
Then he gave away Godwin for the same. So he basically pocketed 2 free 23 seconds, and then he packaged, I assume, his own first plus those 2 that he just traded for Jonathan Taylor.
No.
So you don't like that?
No. You traded 3 firsts for JT? No. He's a running back.
So Gibson, Godwin, and Taylor. Gibson, Godwin, and a 23 first for Taylor in 2 seconds. You like the Gibson, Godwin, and 23 first side?
Man, that's cheating. That's taking out how I got somewhere and just showing how I got there. That's cheating. That's
not showing your work. It's just putting down the answer, right?
And this is now I finally understand why math teachers made us show our work. Because when you put it that way, I'm like, yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. But I'm not giving up 323 first for a running back, no matter who that running back is. Even CMC at the height of his powers, well, maybe CMC at the height of his powers. It's just hard to swallow that, giving up that much capital for the running back position.
So Daniel, 12-team, 1 QB, PPR. He has no first. Weak at receiver. Elijah Mitchell in the 209 for basically Garrett Wilson or Treylon Burks. You doing that?
Yeah, I'm big on Wilson. So yeah, and I'm fine with Treylon Burks there too. Look, the 209, we like this class as dart throws in the late second round, but that's what they are, is dart throws. I don't truly expect them to hit, so I'm fine with that move.
Yeah. Carlo Kiltz. Zach Wilson is his QB2. He also has 5 firsts. You going after another elite quarterback there?
You already know I am. And who am I going after? Well, I mean, look, you're going to start out from the very top, Josh Allen.
So you basically just, what would you send? Wilson and 2 firsts?
Yeah, I'm just going to spam that to whoever owns Kyler.
Just go down the line until one of them hits?
Yeah, Kyler, Lamar, Justin, Josh. One of those dudes hits accept. We're going. Mahomes, obviously. Sorry, yeah, Mahomes.
And you stop at those 5?
Yeah.
Would you go Wilson? He's already got Dak. Would you go Wilson, Zach Wilson, and a 23 first for Burrow and Russ Wilson?
Yeah. I'll throw in a first on those for those.
So
guys.
1 first for those guys?
Yeah. They're not the 2 first and Zach Wilson's, but they can get a first in Zach Wilson.
Yeah, honestly, if I can't move off Zach Wilson and because I have a couple teams like this where I have Zach Wilson and I'd love to get another quarterback, but a couple of them are leagues with like our patrons and like they're not gonna sell me Herbert or Mahomes. You know what I mean? It's gonna be so cost prohibitive. It's not gonna get done. I actually with the 523 first, I actually like taking, and you might say this is a blasphemous trade. I like going with one of those late 23 first that you think might be late, and I like going and buying Garrett Wilson and also trying to get like a second. You're already invested in Zach Wilson, right?
Yeah.
And you can't move off of him. You're going to be hard time pivot off of him. So, go invest in the Jets and just make that a Jets team. And then go join 10 more leagues. So your one league isn't riding on the Jets. All right, 2 more, then we're out because we're close to an hour. So Rob says half PPR. He traded away Tua, Alan Lazard, and a 223 first. Of course, this is a 10-teamer again. Another damn 25 first.
Another 25 first, man.
Have you noticed people are skipping the 24s and just going like 23s and 25s?
What's up with that? I like the 24 class from what I know of it. I mean, it's not the 23 class, but it's also, at least a year sooner. All right.
So 10-team half PPR. Tua, Lazard doesn't matter a whole lot in a 10-team half PPR. So Tua, 223 first and a 25 first. Get Josh Allen, Mike Evans in a second.
Yeah, I'm doing that. Look, I'll pay for quarterbacks, and you're getting Mike Evans, who, look, I'm trading him in all my leagues because he's elderly. He's 28 years old. But I get it. Like, that's instant production. That's at worst wide receiver 2 production. And then you got a 23 second in there. I like it. I like it a lot.
10-team start 9 PPR. This is the last question. Raynard Blindman says 10-man start 9 PPR. Tyreek or Christian Watson and George Pickens. In this For translation, this is like a 12-team start 7. So I think it's super shallow. I think you just go with Tyreek here. Don't get cute.
You got to go with Tyreek. But I get what you're trying to do, because trust me, I'm doing the same thing with Devontae Adams. I traded him in every league I could. But there's still got to be a tier of wide receiver I got to get back if all I'm getting back is, basically age.
If that's Chris Olave and George Pickens, you do it?
Chris Olave and George Pickens, it's getting closer, but still no.
So if it's Garrett Wilson and George Pickens, you do it?
Yes, and then I immediately trade George Pickens for a better football player.
Okay. That's an hour, Shane. Tons of questions.
That was fun.
Final thoughts?
We'll do this again in at least 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We'll tell people it's every 2 weeks we try, right?
I mean, honestly, there's not really an excuse during this time of the offseason, because we're probably going to get a lot of just random fire trades like this because there's nothing going on. So maybe we'll shoot for one sooner. Maybe we'll try to get another one in before June. That gives us 10 days.
Yep. We'll shoot. We'll try. Appreciate everyone joining us. That's what I do. Appreciate everyone joining us.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Love it. We'll probably just announce it like 2 hours before we live stream, because that's how we roll. And hit the like buttons at DL Football, the DLF YouTube channel. Check out our shows, Dynasty and Chill and Dynasty Trades in 5. And yeah, we'll go ahead and sign off. Thanks, DLF, for the platform. Be chill. Say bye, Shane.
Bye, Shane.